You think your thoughts belong to you, that every choice you make starts somewhere behind your own eyes. But for 20 years, a department of the United States government operated on a different assumption entirely. They believed your mind could be opened, edited, and closed again without your permission. This is not a theory. This is a budget. In 1953, a man named Sidney Gottlieb signed his name to a program. He was a chemist. He had a doctorate from Caltech, a slight stutter, and a clubfoot. He drank goat's milk from goats he raised himself. And he was placed in charge of one of the strangest research efforts the American government has ever funded. Its name was MK Ultra. The goal was simple to state and almost impossible to achieve. The Central Intelligence Agency wanted to control human behavior, not influence it, control it. They wanted to know if you could take a person and erase what they knew, or make them confess what they were hiding, or send them to do something they would never choose to do. They wanted a key that fit every human mind. Why would they want that? The answer begins with fear. In the early 1950s, American prisoners returned from the Korean War, saying things that made no sense. Some praised their captors. Some denounced their own country on camera. Washington watched these confessions and reached a terrifying conclusion. They believed the enemy had discovered something, a technique, a method of rewriting a person from the inside. They gave it a name borrowed from a journalist, brainwashing. And they decided that if such a weapon existed, the United States could not afford to be without it. So they went looking for it, and when they could not find it, they tried to build it themselves. Here is the part that sounds invented but is not. The CIA's chosen tool for years was a drug, LSD. They believed this chemical might be the master key, the substance that could break a mind open and leave it suggestible. To find out, they needed to test it, and they decided the most useful test was one where the subject did not know they were being tested. This is where MK Ultra crosses a line it never came back from. Agents were instructed to dose people without consent, not volunteers, ordinary people, going about ordinary days. The program ran experiments in safe houses, including operations in San Francisco, run by a federal narcotics agent named George White. The CIA paid for an apartment, wired it, and arranged for men to be lured there and given drinks laced with LSD so that agents could watch through a one-way mirror what a dosed and unsuspecting human being would do. White later wrote a line about this work that historians still quote. He called it a chance to do legally what would otherwise send a man to prison. Read that again. He understood exactly what it was. He simply had permission. And the experiments went further than spiked drinks. MK Ultra funded research into hypnosis, into sensory deprivation, where a person is cut off from all sound and light until the mind begins to come apart, into electroshock used not to heal but to wipe. One of its grimmest chapters unfolded far from American soil at a respected hospital in Montreal under a psychiatrist named Donald Ewan Cameron. Cameron was not a fringe figure. He was one of the most decorated psychiatrists of his era, a past president of major psychiatric associations. And with CIA funding routed through a front organization, he developed a method he called psychic driving. The idea was to erase a personality and write a new one in its place. He would put patients into drug-induced comas for weeks. He would play looped recordings to them, the same phrase repeated tens of thousands of times. He would deliver electroshock at many times the standard dose. His patients came to him for depression, for anxiety, for postpartum struggles. Some left unable to remember their own children. Some never recovered at all. They did not volunteer for this. They thought they were getting care. The most disturbing thing about MK Ultra is not that it created a mind control weapon. It is that the most powerful intelligence agency on Earth spent 2 decades and harmed an unknown number of innocent people, chasing one that never existed. So how do we even know any of this? By accident and by a man who broke the rules. In 1973, as scandal closed in on the agency, the CIA director Richard Helms ordered the MK Ultra files destroyed. Most of them were. The program was meant to vanish without a trace. But a clerk had misfiled one cache of records. A box of financial documents, expense reports, mundane accounting had been stored in the wrong place and so survived the shredder. In 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request surfaced those surviving pages. Around 16,000 documents, enough for the United States Senate to hold public hearings and confirm on the record that all of it was real. We know about MK Ultra because someone filed the receipts in the wrong drawer. The Senate's own investigation, the Church Committee, laid much of it bare. Congress brought Sidney Gottlieb himself to testify. The government acknowledged, in the dry language of the official record, that experiments had been conducted on people who had not agreed to them, and in some cases never learned what had been done. A handful of victims and families eventually won settlements. Most never got even that. Most never knew they had been subjects at all. Now think about what is missing. The surviving files are only the ones the shredder missed. The financial scraps, the full research records, the names, the outcomes. The worst of it are gone. Burned in 1973 on a director's order. What we have seen is the footnote. The book itself was destroyed. And here is where it touches you today in a way that has nothing to do with conspiracy. MK Ultra is the reason a modern medical consent form exists in the shape it does. Every time a doctor explains a procedure before you agree to it, every time a study has to tell you the risks in plain language, every time a researcher must answer to an ethics board before touching a single human subject, you are looking at the scar tissue MK Ultra left behind. The rules that protect you were written in response to a time when there were no rules at all. The forms you sign without reading are a memorial to the people who were never asked. So we return to where we began. You think your thoughts belong to you. And here is the strange, hard comfort the documents actually offer. They tried, with the full resources of a superpower, for 20 years to prove that your mind could be taken, and they failed. The lock held, not because no one came for it, but because someone came for it with everything they had, and the human mind would not open. Your thoughts belong to you. We have the receipts that prove how hard someone worked to take them.